Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we're going to discuss the astrological energies of May 7th until May 14th as we continue through Taurus season and experience a big Scorpio full moon coming up on May 12th. In addition to the full moon, we're also going to take a look at Mercury entering Taurus, which occurs on May 10th, and will then make a square to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. Plus, we're going to focus on some other astrological influences that I don't touch on as often or as regularly, but they are influential this week. We're going to be looking at Ceres in Pisces making a conjunction to Saturn at 28 degrees of Pisces this week. Plus, we have other activations unfolding and showing up in the collective, including the energies from the recent fixed Grand Cross that involved Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. I'm going to touch on that energy. And I also want to bring into the conversation here Eris in Aries, currently at 25 degrees of Aries, because transiting Chiron is approaching a conjunction to Eris in Aries for the first time in nearly 50 years. And this is going to unfold into late March 2026. This Chiron conjunct Eris in Aries, and how this is going to bring up some intense emotions, experiences, and trauma in the collective, especially in deeply wounded feminine energies. And I'll be touching on that in today's show. So let's begin by recognizing how throughout May, Mars in Leo is going to be in an ongoing trine to Venus in Aries. Now, Venus is still in her retrograde territory until May 16th, but this beautiful trine with Mars in Leo is bringing back confidence, determination, inspiration, and a desire to move forward. This is beautiful alignment between feminine and masculine energies, each in fire signs, ready to create, to move forward, and to go for it. This is beneficial, exciting energy to make the most of throughout May. And they will have their exact trine coming up on May 22nd when both are at 16 degrees. So Venus will be at 16 degrees of Aries, Mars will be at 16 degrees of Leo on May 22nd. But this is a month to make progress, move ahead, trust where your energy is rising, and it feels like there's an open pathway. The two areas of your chart where you have Aries and Leo energies are where things are syncing up for greater support, invitations, opportunities, and beneficial developments. So we always have to identify these phases, right? Especially after the retrograde phase of each of these personal planets, where there was intense reprogramming that was emotional, personal, and required you to look at a part of yourself that maybe you don't readily access. But once that energy is conscious and known, there is an opportunity here now to make moves and go forward with renewal and strength. Maybe you're ready to take a risk or try something new. Perhaps whatever you've been thinking about or overthinking about, you're ready to put it into action and see what unfolds. This is great relationship energy as it supports connections and the masculine and feminine being in alignment. This is strong co-creation energy as each archetype is inspired and feels supported by the other. So I certainly hope you are feeling that energy connecting in your life between this Venus in Aries and Mars in Leo, syncing up, making moves, and activating our creative life forces. Now, as these two are moving ahead, we have Mercury moving into Taurus on May 10th, where Mercury will stay in Taurus until May 25th. So only about 2 weeks in this fixed Earth sign. This is a faster moving Mercury now. This is always the case after retrograde, where Mercury gets back up to speed and moves ahead. And so as Mercury moves into Taurus, we now are being guided to focus and prioritize what is essential. When Mercury is in an earth sign, we look at what is being presented. What is the evidence and the facts? What is showing up for us to consider, process, and implement? This is a fact-based Mercury in Taurus that is assessing the cost, the time involved. What's it worth? Is it going to pay off? And how is it going to work? How is this going to come together? Mercury in the earth signs is always about these practical concerns. So after Mercury was in Aries, getting excited, considering possibilities, what if I do this? How about that? Now we get a reality check around, okay, this is the time I have. These are my resources and my budget. This is what I can invest in now because it matters to me. And this gives you the ability to move ahead with realistic plans. Mercury in Taurus is determined and dedicated. It's where the mind wants to have fewer things in front of it, doesn't want all the extra stimuli or all the ongoing chatter. This is where Mercury needs quiet and focus in order to think clearly. Mercury in Taurus is an observer and is looking around at what is going on, what's being said, and what's not being said, which helps with evaluating priorities and important matters. Mercury in Taurus will hone in on the facts and make choices based on what is. It's also a slower processing Mercury. Mercury in Taurus moves into turtle mode, doesn't want to be rushed or pressured for a choice, decision, or conversation, but will stay the course and get back to you when there is something to be said or discussed. During the 2 weeks that Mercury is in Taurus, there will not be many aspects made with other planets. Mercury will have a square to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius on May 12th. That's happening at 3 degrees. And then there won't be any other aspects until Mercury is conjunct Uranus later in the month. So this could be felt as needing more solitude, time to review and sit with something, that there might be things you don't want to discuss or you don't want to engage in conversation around. You just want to be with your own thoughts. So Mercury in Taurus squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius on May 12th is going to force you to look at an issue, situation, or problem that you may have a limited scope around. You might not know all the facts or information. There could be a power dynamic in play. This is happening in the fixed signs, which can be locked in to a perspective and not willing to compromise, not willing to consider it or think of it in a new light. So it's not a good day for any big conversations or even to make decisions when Mercury is squaring Pluto in the fixed signs, because nobody's willing to see it differently and there might be more pushback involved. Now, it's important to note that this exact square is also occurring on the same day as the Scorpio full moon. That full moon is on May 12th at 12:55 p.m. Eastern Time. This is when the moon is at 22 degrees of Scorpio and the sun is opposing it at 22 degrees of Taurus. Now, I have a separate chart for you on YouTube going through the astrological energies here during this particular lunar phase. The Scorpio full moon is also connected to the annual celebration of Wesak, which is related to Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and death. And it beautifully illustrates how that Scorpio full moon is illuminating a part of yourself that you are ready to rise to and see with new eyes. There's emotional enlightenment here with the Scorpio full moon, where you are transforming and seeing a bigger perspective around something that maybe has been fearful, dark, intense. That Scorpio energy feels really deeply, but this could be a phase of transforming that fear or that emotional intensity into something more useful and to hone in on the wisdom. What is the deeper message here? What am I meant to take forward? What am I meant to understand in myself for greater empowerment and self-revelation? When the full moon is shining shining bright in Scorpio, there's an opportunity to access more of your hidden power, to hear more of the messages and truths that are coming through for you and shining brightly with the power of the moon. So wherever 22 degrees of Scorpio is in your chart is where you are being asked to look at matters that maybe you have pushed away or hidden from yourself, and now they are coming to the forefront of your consciousness for a divine purpose, for an important reason. And if you can work with the energy from that frequency, it's going to benefit you and set you free. Scorpio involves what must transform and evolve, which can be a death, ending, an important shift in consciousness. The intensity here is going to show you what you no longer need, what you no longer need to hold, carry, or internalize, and that it will require a certain level of detachment as offered by the sun in Taurus to stabilize what you're feeling and sensing. So on one side of your chart will be the full moon in Scorpio at 22 degrees. On the other side of your chart is that sun in Taurus at 22 degrees, approaching a conjunction to Uranus at 26 degrees of Taurus. That will happen about 5 days after the full moon. And so this brings up the shocking changes you're ready to make, where you are sensing it's time to free myself from this, to move ahead, to make changes. There are shifts happening in our real worlds. That is the Taurus energy. And when the sun is conjunct Uranus, it's a sense of this is what liberates me and this is what brings me a freedom. Now keep in mind that this exact conjunction will happen next week on May 17th, but it's the last time for 84 years that the sun will be conjunct Uranus and Taurus. And that's because Uranus moves on to Gemini in 2026. So there is a grand completion unfolding here that you've already been sensing and awakening to. This is a big awakening energy, and I feel that it's meant to enhance your self-value, self-confidence, and self-worth that also elevates you, meaning it takes you to new stable ground in identifying what you want to build next in your life. Now, I will touch on this energy more in next Wednesday's podcast episode, but just a heads up, because again, the Scorpio full moon is going to be a part of this story. There is an emotional surge here that you're meant to trust, that you're meant to understand. This is what I'm feeling for a reason. It could be an intensification of an intuitive message that is realigning you powerfully. And it's also working with the North Node in Pisces. This is where we are welcoming in more of our intuitive guidance, seeing the bigger spiritual purpose in order to move on and close out old chapters. The North Node in Pisces is where we are growing and evolving. And I think that is also part of the catalyst of the Scorpio full moon, but it's emotional growth that you can really trust. Now, also on the same day here, on May 12th, Ceres in Pisces is making a conjunction to Saturn in Pisces at 28 degrees. Ceres is known as the mother of the asteroids and is an asteroid in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Ceres is also known as the Greek goddess Demeter, who is associated with the harvest, fertility, abundance, agriculture, and what we invest in that slowly pays off and delivers. So Demeter was the Greek goddess, and her equivalent is the Roman counterpart Ceres. And I want to touch on the mythology and story related to Ceres because I find it fascinating that Ceres is conjunct Saturn at 28 degrees of Pisces on May 12th. Ceres represents the mother archetype, the mother wound, and mothering energy. She also connects to loss, grief, parenting wounds, the loss of a child, and how she forges on and continues after the loss. And all of this is happening right around Mother's Day here in the US. So I feel that this energy is stronger at this time, especially in the collective unconscious around the mother wound. Ceres was the mother of Persephone. Persephone was kidnapped by Hades, also known as Pluto in astrology, and was taken into the underworld for half the year. With her daughter gone, Ceres had had to decide how to use her time and energy in order to process the grief and focus on matters that she could control, even amongst bigger issues that she could not control. And so Ceres conjunct Saturn brings in a seriousness here to what we are carrying, processing, and holding, what unattended grief is drawing us in, that it's time to focus on and work with. There is a strong healing component here to this particular week, and these energies that maybe have been residing in a quiet part of your energy, but they're coming to your attention now. Ceres in Pisces reveals how we deal with loss. She is connected to not only the loss of a child, but any issues with separation, estrangement, and disconnection within the mother-child bond. So as she's conjunct Saturn here, those issues could be at the forefront. And if you consider that Saturn is known and represented as the father, there could be issues here between mother and father energies or archetypal expressions. There could be matters coming up that you need to face, you need to realistically understand and maturely focus on. Saturn is, of course, about responsibility and commitment and how we need to stand on our own in order to process whatever we have been denying or avoiding. So this is a significant transit for Ceres here as she finishes up her time in Pisces, and then she will enter Aries on May 16th, which I will be discussing more because she stays in Aries for an extended amount of time. Now, there are two other lesser known influences that are also happening right now in the collective that I wanted to touch on. The first being Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. If you'll recall, a few weeks ago, we had that Mars-Pluto opposition that created a fixed grand cross with the Sun in Taurus and this Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. And so it's fascinating that as we experience that third and final opposition between Mars and Leo at 3 degrees and Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees, this Black Moon Lilith at 3 degrees of Scorpio made an appearance, if you will, showed up and was deeply activated in the collective in some manner. Black Moon Lilith is not an actual planet, but rather the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth. So it holds the energy of the dark side of the moon, and this can represent a lot within us that is taboo, forbidden, primal, and innate part of our untamed selves. Black Moon Lilith has been in an ongoing square to Pluto in Aquarius, which further triggers the energy that comes out and is felt, especially energy that is uncomfortable, abusive, traumatized, and deeply wounded. In addition to that energy being activated, Chiron in Aries is moving ahead into new territory in Aries and is beginning to make a conjunction to Eris in Aries. Eris, that's spelled E-R-I-S, is a very slow-moving, disrupted energy associated with the goddess of discord, strife, and trouble. Eris in Aries is the uninvited feminine, and because Eris moves so slowly, she has been in the sign of Aries since 1922. So consider that everyone on the planet born after 1922 has Eris in Aries in their natal chart. But here comes Chiron, the wounded healer, activating the deeper wounds, psychological trauma, and a very intense healing journey around this expression. So I was talking with one of my besties about a movie called Single White Female. Do you remember this movie? It was released in the early 1990s with Bridget Fonda and Jennifer Jason Leigh, and it was a psychological thriller about a young woman who allows another woman into her personal space, into her home as a roommate after a recent life change. And so this woman, the roommate, at first appears shy, harmless, and friendly, and she seeks to establish a more personal bond with the main character, played by Bridget Fonda. But over time, as they share space, hang out more, and get to know each other, it becomes clear that this other woman is obsessive, controlling, manipulative, jealous, and basically wants the life that Bridget Fonda has, that the main character has. And so it comes about that this seemingly innocent woman has deep psychological trauma where she pretends to be friends with someone, but secretively she is sabotaging the woman behind her back because she wants her life. She wants what she has. So she's taking the information she has about this main character, creating lies, exaggerations, manipulating the truth in order to create harmful effects on her. So here we have the archetype of Eris in Aries, the uninvited feminine who sneaks in but is actually obsessive, manipulative, and evil, and has a very dark intention of destroying and damaging someone because she has what the other woman wants. It's a story of female friendships that go wrong, betrayal, manipulation, stalkers, obsessive behavior, and ultimately reveals what has been unhealed in someone's persona, in someone's life. When this movie came out in the early 1990s, it became a big hit because now it meant that a single white female was a friend who was potentially manipulative and obsessive, who wanted to harm you based on her own jealousy. And in the movie, it's demonstrated how the roommate starts to take on the traits and characteristics of the main character. Now, there are other movies with this same trope, the same storyline. There is The Talented Mr. Ripley, which had Matt Damon, Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow. The dynamic there was between the two men. There's another called The Roommate, which came out, I think, like 15 years ago or something, about a woman from Iowa who was seeking to create an intense bond with another woman, but ultimately was wanting to work against her and play both sides. So these are interesting movies to understand when we're talking about Eris and Aries and this black moon Lilith in Scorpio squaring Pluto in Aquarius retrograde. Okay, so now we have the energy of females with deep psychological trauma, mentally and emotionally unstable. There's an obsessive energy where they can't let go, they can't move on. They try to manipulate people. They look for the next person to manipulate and use. And these could be patterns that they never give up. They never heal, address, or grow out of. And they might start slowly, very innocent, calm. They might present themselves in one way to gain your trust. But over time, their behavior becomes more obvious, seen, and noticeable, and also raises a lot of questions about their intentions and what they're really trying to do. They will take a little bit of something and use it against someone. They will exaggerate it into something it's not, creating wild lies, sabotaging relationships unnecessarily, and trying to piggyback off of someone else's credibility as if it is their own. Like, for example, can you imagine if you were working with someone and you were their boss and you knew this isn't going well, this is over soon, I need to shut this down and cut it off, but I have commitments here, I have things I have to complete and follow through with, and then that individual thinks it's totally acceptable to proposition you with sex as if it is ever appropriate to proposition your boss for sex. So obviously you fire that person, shut it down, remove them completely from your world and your life. Understand that their obsessive stalking behavior has no limits. In fact, they might be undiagnosed with a psychopathic disorder, with borderline personality disorder, with intense narcissism. There could be some literal issues going on in their brains, and it's important to see it for what it is. Because the other thing is that people with these personalities might have a lot of charisma and might try to charm you. They will gaslight you. They will shift and turn the facts to their own advantage, never addressing the root cause or the patterns that are in play. And another problem is that these people don't go away, because even if this is dead and gone for you, even if it happened years ago, maybe it happened decades ago for you, for them, the obsession is a continuum. It continues on because that energy is so invested in what she's looking to gain, in what she wants, that there are no boundaries. There are no rules here. And that is part of this Eris in Aries energy. And so you want to be aware that some people operate from this psychological place and they don't see anything wrong with it. In fact, they move on to use the next person and continue to stir up the conflict and the strife, the discord and the drama. So it's important to be aware of this energy as Chiron begins to make a conjunction here to Eris in Aries. The conjunction will be the strongest at 24 and 25 degrees of Aries, and it lasts into early April 2026. These energies carry trauma and wounding frequencies that the individual finds as powerful. As in, I will use this against you. I will go to war with you based on my own unhealed wounding. And there can be many reasons for this that honestly, it's not worth your time necessarily to go into it, but it is important to recognize it for what it truly is and to not engage in the darkness of it. And these are people who get really dark. So for those of you who are light workers, empaths, starseeds, you're very intuitive, very energetically aware. Always trust when you are meant to step back from something or someone. If it's in a workplace, a friend group, family, school, whatever it may be. Trust yourself, trust what you're feeling where something feels off, where someone isn't presenting themselves as being empathetic, genuine, or respecting of your boundaries. These people do not honor boundaries because they're very grabby. That's what stalkers are. They want what you have and they will do whatever it takes to get it. And it's actually fascinating to discuss this with other people because I've heard in my world of people who have had this experience and how much this kind of person will ruin friendships and relationships and anything else they can destroy. So if you find you have to step back, cut people off, shut it down, move away, absolutely trust that. Maybe watch one of those movies to see if anything is being revealed to you that the movie confirms. But also focus on the benefits of trusting yourself and how what you're feeling is accurate. It's going to demonstrate that it's true and to prioritize your intuition. Of course, be practical if you think you are in danger. Prioritize your safety and anything else that's necessary with home, family, children, loved ones, whatever the case may be. Also, look for professional support if you are dealing with or have dealt with anyone who moves through the world like this, because you do need psychological support, especially if they are unhinged and want to fight, want to engage you, want more from you. So I know this is not a pleasant topic, but the whole theme of the single white female is real. And these transits are going to reveal more of these personas, more of these people, simply because we need to see them for what they are. We need to understand that, yes, this does exist, and this might be something you have to navigate through, but it will make you stronger, brighter, and clearer because of it. Desperate, evil people have their own path, and it's important to recognize it sooner than later. When we look at the lower expressions of these archetypes of Black Moon Lilith and Eris, there is a lot of anger, powerlessness, fear, and trauma that they run. That's what the energy can run off of. And of course, everyone has the ability to transform that, to take responsibility, to heal it, to look at it, to want to be a better person. But that doesn't mean that they necessarily choose to do so. And you certainly do not need to extend them any compassion, empathy, or any energy at all. In fact, they could use that to manipulate the situation further. And I'm sharing this because I know that so many of you have good, pure hearts. You want to assist people, you want to heal people, you want to support them in their journey, but you've got to be practical, you've got to be realistic, and you need to honor and respect yourself first. So prioritize your own healing journey, prioritize what is good for you and what is best for where you're at right now, and trust how the universe is protecting you and guiding you in the best possible ways if you're dealing with any of these types of energies or psychotic people. If you want to understand or explore either of these archetypes even more, you'll find information on my YouTube channel under the Asteroids, Goddesses, and Dwarf Planets playlists. So under that playlist, I share with you more about Black Moon Lilith, Eris and Aries, plus we look at White Moon Selena, and a number of the other asteroids that you can find in your astrology chart. And this can be a very interesting way to get into more of the specifics in yourself, of course, universe and what you are here to own, transform, and use for your own empowerment. Plus, it can just help you understand how others carry these energy signatures as well. So just to review, this week actually doesn't have very many transiting aspects. So in a way, it is a bit quieter, but it does have an intensity to it, especially with that Scorpio full moon approaching on May 12th. Then as we move into the second half of May, the energy does quicken again. It starts to accelerate, and there's going to be a lot more changes and activations. So just know that whatever you're moving through right now, it's not going to last. It's not going to continue to feel this way or this intense. In fact, it's going to be alleviated here in a matter of weeks, if not sooner. And then the pulse is going to really pick up as we move into Gemini season. And that will start on May 20th as the sun moves into the third sign of the zodiac at 2:54 p.m. Eastern Time. Oh, and before I sign off, some of you have asked a few questions that I wanted to answer and touch on here really quickly. The first is you've asked me about twin flames, and that isn't a topic that I focus on or discuss. I do have a playlist on YouTube that was created back in 2017, and that's because we had a big Leo solar eclipse in 2017 that activated and opened up a lot in the collective heart and love energies. And so that's when I created that playlist that was only on my website back in 2017. And then many people wanted to access it. So then I moved it onto YouTube. I think it was 2019. But anyways, it's not a topic that I resonate with or that I'm interested in. So I'm not someone to turn to for the twin flame information. You know, as with all things on a spiritual path, it can offer you healing insights and wisdom. It's always meant to be about what empowers you and what resonates for you. And for some people, it could be a big thing right now. And for other people, you could be highly uninterested in the topic. So as with all things on a spiritual journey, it's personal. But I just have to do that disclaimer that it's not my jam. It's not my thing. I was guided to share with you that information, 8 years ago now? And I've left it up simply because so many of you have appreciated it. The other question that comes up a lot is around your birth time. And what do you do if you don't have your birth time, since that is a needed data point in creating your astrology chart? Well, I do have a video for you on YouTube that's called 7 Tips for Finding Your Birth Time for Your Astrology Chart. I offer you 7 ways of understanding what time you were born if that birth time was not recorded. So please check out that video in case you need any assistance in finding an exact birth time for yourself. And then the other question that has been coming up a lot recently is about your different astrology charts and how they rank. So let me go through this. Your most important astrological chart is your natal chart. Your natal chart is when you were born, right? Birth date, birth time, birth location. We take those 3 data points and we create your astrology chart, which represents your energetic signature. That is primary, okay? That's always your primary source. That's what you want to reference, including the transits that are happening there around your natal chart. Then every year you have your solar return. And that solar return is when you create a new astrology chart for the next 12 months. And the solar return is when the sun returns to the exact same degree and minute that it's at in your birth chart. So for example, one of my lovely friends just had her birthday yesterday, May 6th. And so if her natal sun in Taurus is at 16 degrees, 40 minutes of Taurus, then her solar return chart begins when the sun returns to 16 degrees, 40 minutes every year. And that's a new snapshot of the energy, and it shows what's going to unfold for you over the next 12 months. And this solar return chart is only good for 1 year. It's only about a 12-month journey, because then when the sun returns again to that same placement the following year, it begins a new cycle. Okay, so the solar return chart is only in play for 1 year, for one 12-month cycle. Then we have your progressed chart. And some of you have been confused about the progressed chart, which is a different timeline of your energy in this lifetime. I have a program, a course that teaches you how to read your progressed astrology chart. And I guide you through the different timelines and what to look at, because what the progressed chart does is it shows the milestone years in your life. It reveals when bigger energy shifts are going to happen for you based on a slower timeline. And that unfolds where in the progressed chart, one day on the calendar relates to 1 year of your life. And it might sound more complicated than it is. It's actually really simple. So let's say you're born on January 1st. January 1st is the energy of the first year of your life. January 2nd is the second year of your life. January 3rd would represent the third year of your life. So then let's fast forward here to January 31st. That would signify what is happening for you on the 31st year of your life, and so on and so forth. And so the progressed chart is another timeline of your life events unfolding. And again, I teach this in the program. So if you're trying to grasp it, I'll put the link below. You can just go look at the free tutorial that I have for you on that landing page that shows you more specifics about this. But this is another way to connect with your path in this lifetime, where there again are milestone years, turnarounds, significant developments. Perhaps you're aware of the progressed moon and how the progressed moon moves 1 degree a month, and it reveals more of your emotional development in this lifetime. So this is a cool way to get into more of the heart of your astrology chart, as well as to understand more of what is going on for you at this time. And when I was doing one-on-one sessions, I always reference the progressed chart because it gives you a bigger picture understanding of what's going on, and it's very accurate. It's fascinating how accurate it can be as well. So you do want to track your progressed chart if that calls to you, if you're ready for that next level of astrological understanding, and to help you know why you're in a certain phase, or to understand what is happening for you and the timeline around where it shifts or changes. So again, how to read your progressed astrology chart is a program that you can access whenever you have time, pre-recorded videos, learn as you go, lots of great conversation in there, lots of great questions as well. So do check that out if you are ready to learn even more about your astrological chart. As always, thank you so much for joining me for today's podcast. I'll be back every Monday and Wednesday for our next episodes and topics. Wishing you a beautiful journey through this powerful Scorpio full moon. I hope it illuminates more of your emotional truth and empowers you at a deep level of your being. Again, be sure to check out the astrology chart on YouTube where I talk about it more. Look forward to connecting with you again soon, and take good care.